Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 251 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined by one of my bestest friends on this earth. It is, of course, the former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Always good when speaking to you. Obviously, like I say, you're on the intro every week. You're the last voice that the listeners hear before I come in, and that's the way it should be. I wouldn't have it any other way. But let's get into the review part. I'm going to dive into this here. I'm going to start with a card that took place at the BT Sports Studio in Stratford, London, on Friday, the 31st of July, of course. A decent card, couple decent fights, a good win for, again, I'm really saying this guy's name wrong, but I'm just going to pronounce it wrong once again. It's bad on my part, but a guy called Callum Smith, now 7-0, a TKO for him in 9 rounds against Smith, who's now 11-2 with a draw. Smith was down 3 times in the fight. It was a bit of a step up really for Agyarko, so a good win for him. Certainly excited to see his next few fights. Also on the bill, the main event, Lyndon Arthur defended successfully his Commonwealth light heavyweight title. He's now 17-0, a win for him against Dex Spellman, who's now 16-4. Unanimous win there, over 12 rounds for Lyndon Arthur. Dex Spellman, quite a limited fighter. He gave it his all. He's got tons and tons of heart. But, he just wasn't good enough, really. Lyndon Arthur had a lot more to his game, the much crisper boxer of the two. And they're lining up Lyndon Arthur to take on Anthony Yarde based on that. And previous stuff that I've seen of Lyndon Arthur, I don't think that's a good matchup for Lyndon Arthur. I think Anthony Yarde wins that fight quite easily. But, I'm not going to frown at it. It's an all-British affair between two, I was going to say unbeaten fighters. Obviously, Anthony Yarde's got that loss to Kovalev, but it's a good fight domestically in Frank Warren's stable. But, yeah, Lyndon Arthur, he didn't get Dex Spellman out of there or anything like that. I think Anthony Yarde would get Dex Spellman out of there quite quickly. I know that doesn't mean everything, but for me, Anthony Yarde's a couple levels above Lyndon Arthur. But moving out now to the Work Point Studio in Thailand. One fight to mention over here. It was shown on the Matchroom YouTube channel. I didn't tune in, didn't see it at all. But Wisaksul Wangek, also known as Saw Rungvisai, he's now 48-5 with a draw. A unanimous decision win for him over 10 rounds against Amnat Ruanrong, who's now 20-4. Moving out now to the Matchroom Fight Camp in Brentwood, Essex. Of course, this was Eddie Hearn's first show he's promoted since the pandemic. I'm going to start with the undercard. It was a decent card, actually, top to bottom, to be honest with you. But I'm going to start here with Dalton Smith. He moved to 6-0, a KO for him against Nathan Bennett over 5 rounds. Bennett now 9-2. Fabio Wardley moved to 9-0, a win for him. A 3rd round TKO win against Simon Valili. Simon Valili now 17-3 with a draw. It was quite a bad performance really from Simon Valili. Quite disappointing from him. A good win though for Fabio Wardley. Like I say, 9-0. That one was for the vacant English heavyweight title, so he's now the English champion. Wardley, of course, managed by Dillian White. Also on the bill, Jordan Gill against Reece Bellotti. That was actually the fight that opened up the card. It was a fight where I kind of felt like Jordan Gill would probably be the winner in the end, and that was right. He won a points win over 10 rounds unanimously against Bellotti, who's now 14-4. Jordan Gill 25-1. it didn't really catch fire. It was a fight that on paper I was really looking forward to it, but it didn't really catch light, to be honest with you. It wasn't really the fight I expected it would be. It wasn't the most entertaining fight. James Tennyson picked up another win, a TKO for him in 6 rounds against Gavin Gwynn. James Tennyson now the new British lightweight champion. The belt was vacant at the time of the fight. Gwynn was down from a right hook prior to the stoppage. A good win there for Tennyson. Pleased to see him pick up a British title there. I think he's already been British champion before. Could be wrong. And the main event, of course, Sam Eggington, 28-7 now. He lost unanimously over 12 rounds to Ted Cheeseman, who's now 16-2 with a draw. That one was for the IBF International Super Welterweight title. Absolute humdinger of a fight there. Definitely one of the best fights we're going to see in 2020, especially with the pandemic. But even that aside, an absolute war. Both men hurt each other multiple times in the fight. Unbelievably, no knockdowns were recorded in the fight. Sam Eggington, I actually thought, and I've got to be honest, I wanted him to win the fight. He's a friend of the show, Sam Eggington. I expected Ted Cheeseman to get him out of there, but credit to Sam Eggington, such a tough guy. Like I say, he actually had Ted Cheeseman hurt numerous times in the fight, and I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Ted Cheeseman's a tough guy. I just felt like Sam Eggington had more miles on the clock going in. But yeah, a real tear up there. Brilliant fight. Good win for Ted Cheeseman. But having said that, it was the type of fight that I think would take quite a few fights off of his career, if you like. It wasn't an unscathed victory, and Sam Eggington left very disappointed. It was a real close fight, I think Eggington felt he won it. Ted Cheeseman felt he won it. Hasn't really been lucky with his decisions, Ted Cheeseman. I think it had been almost 2 years since his last win. He'd had obviously a controversial loss and a controversial draw. But yeah, all the best to both guys there. I want to see Ted Cheeseman in a good fight next, and Sam Eggington, I'd like to see him straight back in a big fight rather than drop down in level. Moving out now to the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, USA. This one was on Showtime. Interestingly enough, Stephen Fulton test positive for coronavirus, so of course he was off the main event. He was in place there to fight for the vacant WBO World Super Bantamweight title, but coronavirus kept him out of the fight. Instead, the chief support fight between Race Aleem, I think his name is, and Tremaine Williams. Tremaine Williams was elevated into the main event against Angelo Leo. So poor Angelo Leo, on fight week, finds out he's not fighting Stephen Fulton Jr. He's now fighting a southpaw, a slick, skillful southpaw in Tremaine Williams, and Tremaine Williams was the big favourite based on that factor. Obviously, Tremaine Williams was 19-0, so was Angelo Leo, the Mayweather Promotions prospect. Like I say, it was still for the vacant WBO World Super Bantamweight title. Tremaine Williams started to fight really well. He probably won the first 2 or 3 rounds quite easily, and then I'm not quite sure what happened. It all just seemed to go terribly wrong for him, and he pretty much lost every round after that. It was a complete landslide in the end for Angelo Leo. So he's now 20-0, and he wins another belt there for the Mayweather Promotions stable. He's now the new WBO World Super Bantamweight champion, 20-0, and a very disappointing performance in the end for Tremaine Williams. I'm not quite sure he'll get a chance like that again. It was really a big chance for him there. So he's 19-1, friend of the show, the mighty midget. I wish him all the best. Also on the card, Ray Salim did fight. He's now 17-0. He had a rematch with a former opponent of his, Marcus Bates. Marcus Bates wanted to try and avenge that loss, but he was TKO'd in 10 rounds. Marcus Bates now 11-2 with a draw. Ray Salim 17-0. That's it for the review part. Let's talk about the there's one other card to mention. This one took place on Tuesday, the 4th of August, so just 2 days ago. It took place in Belarus. It was an Al Siesta Promotions card. We had Ismail Iliev, 12-2 with a draw. He took on our very own Asinia Byfield, 14-2. In the end, quite wide on the cards for Ismail Iliev. Haven't seen the fight, but if he's beating the likes of Asinia Byfield and it's not controversial. I'm not quite sure if it was. I don't know. I haven't seen the fight, but that's a good win because Arsenia Byfield's a real good fighter. So a 10-round points win there unanimously for Ismail Ilayev. And also on that card, a heavyweight by the name of Zan Kosabutski, who is 14-0 now, I think, with 13 KOs. He was able to stop the very game and tough Kamil Sokolowski, obviously a journeyman, but tough as hell Sokolowski, you know, been in there with the likes of Dillian White. He had a exhibition fight against Hughie Fury, which I actually watched from ringside. Kamil Sokolowski, real tough guy. He boxed Lucas Brown, had Lucas Brown down in that fight. Sokolowski as well has knocked out a couple of prospects and stuff like that. He's now 9-18 with 2 draws. I think that's only the third time he's been stopped. So that's a big statement there from Zan Kosabutski, 14-0. Moving on to the preview part now. Like I say, going to start here tomorrow night at the Matchroom Fight Camp once again, week 2 in Eddie Hearn's back garden. Not as good as a card as the first one, I don't think, but we're going to talk about this here. Anthony Fowler, 12-1. He's in a 10-rounder against Adam Harper, who's 9-1. All the best to Anthony Fowler in that one. I'm gonna say this now. I've been taking the Supreme CBD that he promotes and pushes, and yeah, Anthony Fowler's in my good books at the minute. All the best to him, friend of the show. We also get to see a great fight at the Cruiserweight division for the Commonwealth Cruiserweight title between Chris Billum-Smith, who's 10-1. He takes on Nathan Fawley, who's 14-0. That one's over 12 rounds. And then for the WBC and IBO World Female Super Featherweight titles, we get to see the undefeated Terry Harper take on Natasha Jonas, who's 9-1. So that's over 10 2-minute rounds. All the best to both the ladies there. Moving out to Spain, this one takes place on Saturday at the Plaza de Toros de Puerto Banús in Marbella, Andalusia. We get to see Kerman Leharaga, 30-2. We know him very well, of course, for boxing the likes of Frankie Gavin, Bradley Skeet, not Sam Egginton, no. Who beat him? David Avanesian. Yeah, he's now 30-2. He takes on our very own Tyrone Nurse, 37-6 with 2 draws, over 10 rounds, that one there. No belt on the line. If it was a few years ago, I'd definitely favour Tyrone Nurse, to be honest with you, but I think at this point of his career, he's very much on the slide. So I expect probably Kerman Leharaga to get the win there. And next Wednesday, again, the show won't be out by this time, but you know, by the time we bring out next week's show, so I've got to mention this. I've got to preview this. We will get to see at the Production Park Studios in Yorkshire, United Kingdom. It's an MTK show. Friend of the show, John O'Carroll, tops the bill. Former world title challenger, of course. His sole loss comes to Tevin Farmer, 18-1 with a draw. He's in a 10-rounder against Maxie Hughes, 20-5 with 2 draws. Should be a decent fight, but John O'Carroll, in my eyes, couple levels above Maxie Hughes, really. So I'm expecting John O'Carroll to win that one without much trouble. That's it though for the preview part. Just checking if there's any news. Really doing this live, to be completely honest with you. No real news. So yeah, that's it. I like it when there's not much news, so we can just fly straight into what we've got to get into. And that is Eddie's Lockdown Knockdown segment. Here we are. We've been building up to this moment here. We've spoke about the early parts of your career, Eddie. Obviously, some of the guys that we've mentioned, there's been brilliant stories behind all these fights, all these training camps. But some of the guys, some of our listeners wouldn't have been familiar with. This time, very much they'll be familiar with this guy, of course. Alexander Povetkin was your next fight. But where does it start, Eddie? I'm going to throw it down to you now. This is edition 5 or something like that. Take it away, Eddie.
All right. This one is going to start really right after the Calvin Brock win. And actually, during the preparation, we talked a little bit about, the tournament. And, I've talked to you, Joey, and the listeners about the idea of the 4-man tournament. It was me, Calvin, Chris Bird, and Povetkin. And, the general consensus is that they really wanted to see the two guys who obviously had never faced Vladimir, because, of course, Chris Bird at that point had fought Vladimir, and Calvin Brock had just lost to him, the last time he was in a world title fight, which was his first time. So they kind of didn't want to see that again. You know what I mean? They wanted to give get fresh faces in there with him, and maybe another guy in there who could actually beat him. You know what I mean? Be it the American or the Russian. So they had spoke about the date, and they said, I think at one point they were saying that there was a negotiation of whether we can use that date or push it back. And initially, so we thought that we're going to be going into camp, around sometime in December, maybe a little earlier, depending on what's going on. Early December was what we were talking about. But the fight was actually January 26th, and we also knew we were fighting in Germany. This was my first time fighting in Germany, so we knew that we would have to get started. We should be getting started earlier. But the thing was, I had just fought Calvin Brock on November 2nd. And generally after the fight, you get a little bit of a break. You don't want to go right back into camp. Although for the most part, we're always training. Like, that's what we do. We just go to the gym every day. But for this particular situation, it was like we just wanted to kind of rest and kind of recover, because we had it was a rough camp. We spent at least 8 weeks in, and of course, even before that, we were training anyway. So it was just like a big, a whole lot of work. And then I think. You know what? Now that I think about it, I think that the Calvin Brock fight, you know what? That's what it was. The Calvin Brock fight was actually supposed to be, I want to say, a month or so earlier, maybe 4 to 6 weeks earlier. I forgot about that. And so what they did was they ended up pushing it back to November 2nd, because it wasn't supposed to be November originally. Because I had fought Dominic Gwynn, I want to say, what was that? That was May 4th, right? And so our fight with me, Calvin's fight, was supposed to be set for September. I think it was either September or October, early October into September type thing, right? But then they pushed that back and gave us a November 2nd date. So we figured that, since that happened, then they're also going to push back the fight with Povetkin if we were to win, or once we won, right? So, we start, training, but we were taking our time, and it was maybe in the middle of the month. We didn't really even have, a camp situation set yet, because we were planning to go to Florida, because we wanted to go to Florida, because of course at this time it was the winter time in where I'm from in Jersey. So we were thinking about going down to a hotter climate, get the heat in you have nice weather, you know what I mean? And just being able to completely train with no issues, you know what I mean? With the snow, you never know, you might not be able to go outside at certain times, you slip on the ice and things like that. So we didn't want anything to get in the way of the training, so we were going to go to Florida. Come to find out, they weren't bending on the date of January 26th. And at this time, it had already been, maybe it was over a month, so we were still kind of like trying to negotiate that. And it just never happened. So we're talking about, we were close to Christmas. And we haven't even gone to camp yet. We were talking about maybe the end of the second week of December. You understand what I'm saying? So we were planning on going to camp, and it's like, wait a minute, this fight is literally next month. We're talking about maybe a month and a week of training, and not less than that, because we got to take 8 days, because we wanted to get over there early so we can get acclimated to, the time change and just things in general, and whatever we're going to be eating. We're going to have time to do all those things. So really, we only had a little less than 4 weeks to prepare. And they weren't changing the date for nothing. That was the date that they scheduled, and those guys wanted to keep it that way. I guess they figured, us trying to negotiate changing the date, there must have been something wrong with our camp, and we weren't able to properly train. So the smart thing was, you know what I mean, get them in here at this time so we can make sure that, he's either going to be ready or he's not. And and the way things sound, he's not going to have enough time to properly train. You know what I mean? So, but what we did was we ended up having to try to rush to Florida, because we wanted to work with Buddy once again, because we had, good time last time. It worked out perfect when we did it before. So we felt that, with the Gwynn fight and all, and then also with the previous camp that we had down there. And we also wanted to see if Buddy, would help us out with, scheduling things and then also being a part of the camp in general, with information because, Buddy's a Hall of Fame fighter as well as a trainer. So we wanted to kind of have that information in our corner. And but by the time we got down there, and this is what happened. Another issue came about. Now, at this time, we were still training, but we weren't really prepared. We weren't really like, when you have a camp set up, when you're getting ready for a major fight, you have your sparring partners, you have your training schedule, you have, your team all around you, and your sleep schedule. Everything is scheduled. Everything is perfect. It should be, or at least you work it as perfectly as you possibly can. We were just training like normal. You know what I mean? Because we weren't in camp mode yet. So we were like, okay, well, we just got to push it back, a little bit. But we've been training, so we're kind of in shape. We just got to get right to work. Well, we were initially supposed to leave before Christmas. Something happened with our flight when we got to the airport and ended up having to push it back. And then we couldn't leave till after the 1st. So that's another whole week of camp that we missed. So by the time we actually get to Florida to get to our camp, it was, I want to say January 2nd was when we got there. And obviously you can't jump right into the gym right when you get off the plane. So, and I can't remember what day or what time of day it was or not. I'm not familiar with, I can't really remember. But when we got in there, we just had to set everything up. Sparring partners and everything were coming, and they came, within, a day or so. So all of that stuff was there. So now remember, I said the fight was January 26th. We had got to camp January 2nd. We had started camp probably January 3rd. Now we have 23 days of camp to prepare. Now, most guys, when you're training for a high-level fight, like with a guy like a Povetkin, and this was Povetkin before he had, where he is now and with his name and all of that. Even though he had a great amateur career at the time and he had just beat Chris Bird, he still wasn't, he was still fresh and not really known by a lot of these, a lot of the people out there now. But they knew his background, they knew he was pretty good. But when you're getting prepared for a fighter like that and you only have 23 days to train, you must have you had to have already been in camp for 10 weeks or something like that, or you had already been training hard and sparring perfect and all of those things for weeks before you got into camp, or you're screwed. And in this case, we weren't doing that because we had assumed that we would be able to push the time back. You know what I mean? But they wouldn't budge them. So we're now in a position where we have to not only try to get things, we have to not only get to camp as soon as we can, but we have to rush camp. We have to literally rush levels. That's like going to bed at 2 a.m. and trying to rush yourself into the perfect time for your, to go through the proper levels of sleep and then wake up at 6. This is not going to happen. It's a natural progression. You know what I'm saying? Like with sleep and with all those things, you have to allow it to progress over time. You have to train properly over the course of, 6 to 8 weeks at least. And we really just didn't have the time to do it. So what we had to do is we had to rush things. So I'm literally training. Now, this was the first time. This was before Peter. You know what I mean? And, we kind of had these things where we would train, multiple times in a day, maybe 3 times a day and things like that. But this time we actually had to perform those things and not only do 3 times a day, we had to do 3 times a day almost every day of the week because we only had 2 full weeks to train. We had 17 days to train. 17, maybe, I'm sorry. Maybe 14 days to train. That is 2 weeks. Now, you can do a good amount in 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong. You can get yourself into but like I told you before, like we talked about before, there's certain natural progressions that you have to have through your camp. You can't be in camp in the first week and then all of a sudden next week you're in mid camp flow basically, or in the camp flow where you're basically like smacking around your sparring partners because you're so sharp, you're dropping guys, you're sending people home because they can't deal with it, that kind of thing, or people can't keep up with you in the running and all of those things that happen over the course of camp. that won't happen within 1 week. That takes time. It takes weeks. You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes, maybe you'll have a sparring partner that just got your number that first week. You know what I mean? But over time, sparring with them and learning things and working and getting in better shape and getting better focus, you know what I mean? You'll start to turn the tables a bit. You know, maybe there's multiple sparring partners that you're struggling with. Whatever the case may be, you'll have a chance over the course of camp to get to a certain level. But because we had such a short period, we had to get there faster, like at the snap of a finger. Like we had to be on point right away. So once again, I had Tony Thompson in camp with me, as well as one of the guys I previously fought because he was so tough. We brought Dominic Jenkins into camp, which was one of the guys I fought him from an audition fight we talked about, a year or so or 2 years or so before. Maybe not even that long. Obviously, it might have been less than a year before. I can't remember. But anyway, and we had a few other guys that were there that was from Florida, and they were good sparring partners, right? But even with all that, it's like I still had too much of a workload. You can overdo things in a short period of time. So you can be like undertrained or, you could be like underprepared to a degree and then say, okay, well, I got to pack all of this in to a matter of 2 weeks. And then you can overtrain your body for that short period of time. And what will happen is all of the work you put in will be almost for nothing when the actual time to perform comes in. So, we're training, and the first week, which I'm already in okay shape. I'm not in terrible shape. I'm not bad shape or anything like that. But I'm in okay shape, because we're always working out. We're always doing something, but I haven't been doing, it at the level of intensity that we need. So when I get down there, I'm sparring, and I'm doing well in sparring, but it wasn't like, I'm knocking nobody's socks off. I'm not doing anything crazy. But we're having to spar. Like I think the first day we sparred, we had to do a 10-round. Now, when you first come to camp, there's another thing, a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people know about the insides of camp, but when you first come to camp, you want to have a day where it's like you're just kind of getting acclimated. You want to get to know some of the sparring partners. Maybe go 6 rounds, maybe 6 to 8 rounds at the most. You know what I mean? A lot of times guys will just spar 4 to 6 rounds at the most. So what we did, we couldn't do that. So we had to spar 10 rounds the first day because we're already behind the schedule. You know what I mean? So I'm sparring 10 rounds right off the rip, sparring 10 rounds with 3 and 4 guys. You know what I mean? With two at the first day. Yeah, I think we had 4 guys, and I was sparring. One guy, if he's a little bit better or a little bit more, a little more like the guy I'm going to fight or whatever, he would probably get the bulk of the rounds, or he'll, or you would split it up evenly for, with all the guys. But the reality of it is, I'm just getting to camp. So even though I can do it, it's still not great. You know what I mean? And I think I sparred a 10, and the next day was, and not 2 days later. The next day was a 12-round day, right? So we had to do that. Then we took a day off, which was the middle of the week, which I think was Wednesday or something like that. Then we did Thursday, I think a 12, or no, we might have did a 15 or something crazy like that. We might have just did 12. I don't think we did 15 in this camp, but I think we did another 12-round day of sparring. And that day, which was I think Thursday, was actually a really pretty good day considering, where I was at. And I had started to show promise, and, Buddy and everybody was kind of high on it. It was like, well, maybe you'll be all right. You know what I mean? We would be okay with the time we have if you keep performing like this. But your body can only take so much. And remember, I'm going and I'm doing 3 a days. I'm lifting in the morning along with some conditioning, and then I'm going to complete conditioning, like running on the beach and sand and running hills and doing all these different things like that. And then I'm going and sparring 12 rounds in the evening. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then remember we're in the hot sun, even though it was the weather time, we're in Florida, it's pretty warm down there. So it's like you trying to get your body acclimated, but it's just not responding 100%. So it's getting better, but it's like, I'm doing too much. And your body starts to, negatively respond. You know what I mean? So the third day was okay. It was good. It was actually the best day. But then the next day was somewhat subpar. And I sparred again on Friday, and I think we did a 10. And it's like, we'll give you the weekend. I mean, we're going to come in on Saturday. You're going to train a few times, but you're not going to spar until next Monday. All right, cool. We go in and spar on the next Monday, and Sparring was, once again, it was okay-ish, but it was kind of subpar. You wouldn't want that. You know what I mean? And I think that was another 10-round day. Then we go into our 12-round day the next day. Wasn't good. You know what I mean? I should have been like slapping guys around and really been in control, but it just wasn't, I just wasn't where I wanted to be. I didn't feel good. I started to feel kind of weak. You feel tired and you're just doing so much. And it's like, but you can't stop. You got to keep going. So then, we get our Wednesday off again like we did last time. And then we went back in on Thursday. And Thursday was bad. It wasn't like I was getting hurt or slapped around. It was just I didn't have enough energy. I wasn't into it as much as I could have been because I really couldn't physically do it like I wanted to, and it was like, damn, what is happening to me? Like it's not even a full 2 weeks in and I'm already like feeling tired. Like what is going on? And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand what it was. So I'm, I guess I got to keep training. I got to train harder. So then they come in again, same schedule, three times again, had that same schedule early where we lifting and then doing the conditioning and all of that stuff throughout the day, and then come in and spar 12 rounds. And that last day, Buddy was like, I think I got to like the 8th or 9th round, and Buddy just stopped the sparring because I had no energy. It was uninspired. Like I just looked like I was really lethargic and I don't want to say lazy because it wasn't trying to be lazy, but your body just won't react. And he was just like, man, look, man, just tie a bow on it, man. Work is in as much as it can be at this point. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to take more off of yourself. So, you know what I mean? What we do is we're going to just like button up the sparring and just, when we get over to Germany, because I think we were leaving in 2 days after that or something like that, or a day or so, we'll just go and we'll do some more training while we're there. You know what I mean? So, and I remember even talking to Tony, he's like, man, you just really didn't have a lot of time, man. You're supposed to be like laying us out, beating us down. You can't. And like, you just, it's just not enough time, man. Like you think that they'll postpone it? Like, we tried to get them to postpone it before and they weren't with it. So we got to do what we got to do. And he's like, I understand, man, but it might not be the best look for you if you're, depending on how you were feeling today. Because he was talking about the sparring, it's like it just doesn't look. You're not in the position. You're not the way that you normally would be at this stage. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Just do what you can. You got the skills, but not sure. You know what I mean? I can't say 100% what's going to happen if you're not able to completely feel as good as you need to feel on fight night. So anyway, we get on the plane, we fly out, and so when I get there, it's just like, I mean, when you get to the fight, when you get to wherever you're going to fight or whatever you're going to do, you're generally just there and you might shake out, you might hit the pads a little bit, move around the ring, work out really light, not do much. Man, I'm over in Germany with 7 days to my fight, doing 2-a-days. There wasn't no sparring, so I couldn't spar, but I was doing 2-a-days. Like I was literally going to the exercise rooms in the morning and doing 45 minutes to an hour of conditioning. I would jump. Then I was going into the pool on certain days, like twice a week, and swimming for about that amount of time, conditioning. You know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking, man, I got to be in shape. I got to keep going. Because we were trying to get every second of extra work that we could in to be as properly prepared as possible. And what was happening over the course of this time, Povetkin people were staying obviously in the same hotel, right? And they had people, not necessarily, I wouldn't say spying necessarily, but maybe, you know what I mean? And like I would be down there and I'd be in there working. I'd be on the bikes, I'd be on the ellipticals, I'd be doing all of this stuff. I'd be in there 45 minutes drenched in sweat, like really, really like working my tail off, right? And I remember at the first press conference, one of the guys, and they're speaking German, and they're talking to the press, and they were asking, what he, certain people saying, oh, well, he doesn't look like, well, no, they weren't saying that. He was just talking to them, and I forget what they asked him. And it was like, people were saying that Eddie Chambers generally looks like he's not really in that good a shape, but I saw him working out, and this guy's working out hard and he's already, in while the fight's close, and I see him and he looks like he's really ready for this fight. And I'm sitting there thinking like, damn, these guys have been watching. They're coming into because I've seen this guy several times. They come into the pool. They're coming into the exercise room. And I mean, he's sitting on the bikes and, acting like he's working out when really he's watching me work. And it's like they're thinking one of two things. And of course he says that because he wants to make me look better. So if Povetkin wins, he beat a real good Eddie Chambers or whatever. So it makes him look better. But the reality of it is they probably thinking, well, this dude was struggling in camp to be ready on time. So he's still basically in camp right now and going crazy over here so he can be and show up somewhat decent. You know what I'm saying? So we go a little further. Now we're doing all these, these pictures and, signing things at this point. Because in Germany, it's, obviously boxing's huge overseas, and Germany's no exception. And the place we were, which is in Berlin, Germany, they had a lot of press, they had a lot of people that were interested in the fight. Everybody loves Povetkin over there, even though he's Russian. He was adopted by them, there. You know what I mean? So, and he was with not Universum. What was his I can't remember who his team was. Damn it, I can't remember. But anyway, they were all.
He's with. I don't know who he was with back then, but I know now he's with like a promotional team called World of Boxing. Was it the same back then?
Nah. It was somebody else, and I can't remember. Sauerland.
Ah, okay.
There you go, Sauerland. That's who he was with, and they, I think a German, if I'm not mistaken, company or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had brought him over, and he was like a house. Yeah, he was a house fighter over there. He was fighting. So I remember, we were, we were going to different, just a bunch of different places and talking to different people and signing autographs, taking pictures. Like I got so many pictures that we took there. Plus we already had our own photo guy, and he was taking like video, still pictures, but he was also taking video and all kind of different things that he was doing. And it was just it was a good thing. We got a lot of good pictures, a lot of good video, a lot of good content from that fight and just the pre-fight thing and everything. It was a really good situation. The only bad part is I don't think I was properly ready because it would have been so much better if I would have had completely everything would have been just perfect. Like if I was in shape and felt as good as I did with Dominic Gwynn or even Calvin Brock, fight would have been totally different in my opinion. I mean, it started out well, but it would have been even better. But anyway, so go through all of these different things, and I just couldn't help but to think about how I'm going to feel the night of the fight. Because I had been doing so much over those last 3 weeks, trying to pack all of that into a short period of time, that I didn't really know if I was going to be, like what was going to show up. And then the sparring didn't look good and didn't feel good at the end. So it's like, how do we know what's going to happen? So all we did, we looked at him and we looked at his level of skill. And don't get me wrong, he is skilled, but we looked at me and what I can do and me as a fighter, and it just matched up into us, with what I can do. He just wasn't close. You know what I'm saying? We just didn't think that, but he had the experience and he got all this. So we got to make sure that we're on point. Plus we're fighting in Germany, his hometown basically right now, even though he's Russian. We still gotta, we gotta make sure that we put him out of there and destroy him. And I'm just sitting there thinking, and I'm wondering, like, yeah, we can try to destroy him and all that, but I got to make sure that I feel good come fight night. So anyway, we're in the dressing room, go to the dressing room, we get to that point where, I'm nervous, obviously, like always, but at this point, I felt a little better, about things. Of course, the closer you get to the fight, the more it becomes, hey, it's just business as usual. This is, it's a big fight. It's important, but, I've been doing this all my life, so I should be fine. And I remember sitting in the dressing room and, once again, of how we talked about before about me being so, what is my body gonna look like, and am I in shape and things like that. And I remember seeing some of the pictures, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yo, damn, that just didn't look good. I remember sitting there like with a shirt, like sitting down and looking at my stomach and different parts of my. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't like, I don't want disrespect to Andy Ruiz because he's he did more than me basically when you look at as far as titles are concerned, but I didn't look as big as he did. However, my I didn't look good. I didn't look svelte. I didn't look like strong or cut or anything like you would think a guy fighting in a fight like this would be. I didn't even look as good as I've looked in some of my previous fights. So it was a worry, and I got on the scale at the weigh-in and I weighed 219, and 219 for me is 4 or 5 pounds a little heavier than I wanted to be. And I wanted to be even a little lighter than that, to be honest, especially when we're only fighting a guy that was 227. So, I could have been, like 209, 208 and would have been I would have been good and I would have felt good. I would have been in the fight the whole time. So, I'm a little worried about that. And I'm thinking, but hey, I've been chubby before or whatever. That's been kind of my MO anyway for most of my career. Maybe it's just because my body type, you use that body type excuse all the time, which really is not a good one. But so we get into the fight, and the first thing that I noticed about in the fight was that he's not gonna back off. Like, he's not gonna make this easy. This guy was coming to fight. Like, he wasn't up, and I'm not saying he wasn't trying to take a backward step, but which he really wasn't. I mean, the European style is to kind of pull back a little bit to get you to come in and be aggressive, and then for them to attack. But the reality of it is, he just wanted to pressure me and really wanted to see where my conditioning was. And I kind of looking back on it, kind of seen it. And I mean, he actually thought before the fight, and this is what they said in the post-fight press conference and all, that he thought I was going to be moving a lot. In all the fights I've had before that, I've never moved a lot. Not even in fights where I'm severely undersized and the guys, are stronger or seem stronger than me. I've never done that. I've always been right in your face. But for whatever reason, they thought I was going to move. So me standing, and maybe they didn't really study enough of my fights. But anyway, but what surprised them, so they said, is that I stood right there and was in punching range and looking to punch and looking to defend there and fire back. And they said it surprised them because he didn't expect me to be able to do that at range, you know what I mean, right in front of him and make him miss and make him pay. But even though, I realized that he was going to be aggressive and he was going to be right there, he still was an easy target in my opinion. Like, he kept falling for the same shots, like the double jab, or the one jab, feint, another jab, look down his body, throw a right hand over the top. It worked like a charm every single time I threw it. Even if it didn't land perfect, it still kind of got something. The first one was like, it instantly, once the punch landed, once the right hand landed, he had the mouse on his eye turned into a rat immediately. Like, boom. You know what I mean? It swelled up like a balloon. So I was like, okay. And then, even though I didn't feel great, like super great, and I remember in the first 2 or 3 rounds, like, damn, man, I don't feel that good, but I can beat him easily. Like, I felt like it was not going to be hard. And maybe I could kind of, beat him down and maybe end up stopping him. And I started to think that because those shots were landing so hard. But he just kept coming back. And I'm like, damn. I'm like, yo, I'm hitting this dude with some shots, and he just wouldn't give up. He wouldn't back off. He would back off, but he wouldn't back off for long enough time for me to just say, okay, well, I got this dude. He's going to be on the end of my punches now for the rest of the night. But he kept trying. He kept throwing shots here and throwing shots there. He kept challenging. And it was fine. And eventually, I felt like I was going to get to a point where I'm just going to be able to get inside, push him around, and walk him down and dominate him. And I remember there was, I want to say, a time in the fourth round where I remember I did this, one of my favorite things I've seen in my highlights, where I did this like James Toney shoulder roll kind of block and return the right hand, landed perfect. And I still don't know how this dude took that shot and just kept coming. I was like, damn. It didn't necessarily like make me like, oh man, he's still there. Like that video of when Canelo hit Triple G with that big right hand, and Triple G didn't even blink and he kept walking him down. And you seen Canelo's face kind of like damn, this dude just won't stay off. Well, it wasn't that I had that because I was kind of used to that. Because I'm used to hitting these big giant dudes and them being able to take the shots and keep coming back. So it didn't really bother me, but it's just like, okay, well, I just got to keep doing it. And, the fourth round and the fifth round, I'm feeling like I'm winning these rounds, all of them, to be honest. Maybe I didn't win every one of the first 6, but I did feel like I won 5 of them at least. Now, but we get to the 6th and I think the 6th round, then going into the 7th. And I remember there was a part of the 7th round where he threw a punch and I caught it. And it felt like his arm just laid on my body, on my shoulder or something. And I just kind of pushed him back. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got it. I really felt like at that point, like he was giving up. Like he started to really feel like this dude's just, like I can't do nothing with this guy. You know what I mean? Like he keeps hitting me with these big ass right hands, and I can't seem to get away from it. And if he's gonna be this energized the rest of the fight, I don't really think you could just feel almost, I don't want to say giving up, but you could feel it kind of coming down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So as that happened, I'm like, yeah, I got it. Oh yeah, I got it. And then as soon as he did that, and I started to try to muscle up something to come back with, and I'm feeling good about it, I threw my shot, and it felt like I had nothing in my, like nothing. Like I tried to throw a punch, and I tried to throw it with some conviction, and nothing. And I was like, oh, shit, man. Like, why now? You know what I mean? Like, why now do I feel now my body's giving up on me? It was kind of like when we talked about that fight with Robert Hawkins. I was like, damn, I couldn't barely lift my arms at the end. And I'm in the 7th round of this major fight, this big opportunity where the next fight would have been Vladimir Klitschko. I would have been undefeated fighting Vladimir. I'd probably got like $5 million. I would have had an opportunity for $5 million. Or I could have just took this Povetkin win and just went on ahead and kept fighting other guys. I could have done whatever. I would have been able to do whatever I wanted to do at that point. Here I am in this fight. Feel like I got this guy where I want him, and I have not an ounce of energy left to put into my punching. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to fake my way through the rest of this fight and win? And thing was, you got to think about it too. We're in Germany. I was probably already 5 rounds down, even though I felt like I was 5 rounds up. You know what I'm saying? And I was actually right on one of the cards, but it was like, damn, what the hell can I do? And I remember going back to the corner, and I remember Buddy McGirt saying something like, he was saying, hey, man, look, even if you ain't got none of any punches, man, just throw them things straight down the middle, let them go, no matter what. At least you're being active, even if it's not landing real heavy and, whatever, just being active. Keep them hands on you, keep the jab in his face. And I'm hearing it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm going to try that. And I'm thinking about going and try. But knowing me and how I am, especially at that point, I'm an accurate guy who doesn't waste opportunities. And that's just something it's been that way for my entire career. I never wasted punches. So it's like when I go in there, I can't necessarily just fling out 4 or 5 easy little pity-pat crap shots. I got to throw shots that mean something, that look like something. I've been fighting with this pro style even since an amateur. So it's really difficult for me to do it. So they're telling me this, and I'm trying it, and I'm doing it. But it's just not working. I'm still looking for that perfect shot and looking for those big shots that I was landing earlier, and it's just like there's no energy, though. It's not perfect anymore. So even though most people looked at me as like, yo, man, you just look like you took money or something, like them dudes paid you off because you just stopped throwing punches. It's like, nah, man, I just couldn't muster up anything worth throwing. So at the time, I'm thinking, well, what's the point in throwing it? You know what I mean? And I just started to, every round, I slowly just, you're still thinking at that point when it first happened that I'll be all right. Let me just get a rest after this round, and I'll come back in and I'll be better. And it just never came. The energy never came back. So I remember going into we went to the scorecards. I already knew what was going to happen, even though I felt like I won the first 5, maybe 6 rounds. There were super wide scores. One was like 119, 109. One was 117, 111. I think 116, 112 was the other. if I'm not mistaken. And it's like they were all too wide. You know, one was 8'4", one was what was it, 9'3". The other was what 10, 11 to 1 round. So I mean, it was a ridiculous thing. I already knew I was facing that. So the thing was that we were going to have to go in here and dominate this guy or knock him out. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I couldn't complain so much because the idea of it was, look, there was no way we were going to win a decision unless we basically killed the guy or, you know, beat him half to death and then walk out. And then we may get a draw. That's how we felt. But me going in there and not throwing any punches in the second half of the fight, basically the last 6 to 7 rounds, or I'll say 6 rounds, 5 to 6 rounds, it wasn't going to get me to a decision. We knew. So with the way the fight was going, we didn't expect to win the decision. And if you go back to the broadcast and you listen to my dad and some of the stuff he said after the fight, most people really love to joke with me about that. But the reality of it is he was kind of right about it. I mean, not every part of it, but he was really what the issue was. We just didn't get to camp on time. You know what I mean? And whether it wasn't his fault. He was already harping like, yo, we got to train. We got to get there. That's all he was thinking about anyway was the fight part. He wasn't thinking about the business. He was just thinking about being in shape and being ready. So his thought process was we were definitely in camp way too late. But what caused this whole big issue was obviously not taking this thing. I don't want to say it wasn't taken serious because it was definitely taken serious, but not taking it serious enough. When it's time to get in shape and get right for a fight. Now, for all those other fights that we talked about, you know, I was in top shape for as good as I could have possibly been in. And then I get to the biggest fight up to this point of my career and choose that fight for whatever reason. I'm not saying it was my fault. I'm not saying it was anybody's fault in particular. But we chose that fight to kind of skim on. And clearly you can see if you watch the fight, I was a class above him at that time. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? He was being outclassed in the fight. Had I been in camp for 8 weeks, we wouldn't even be having this conversation like this anyway. We'd be talking about something else in reference to how I beat him or how he quit on the stool, because we also got information from some people who was working in his corner that they were, you know, thinking about that. You know what I mean? Because he was taking serious damage and it just kept coming. And they didn't, you know, they were getting to a point where they didn't really know what to do and they wanted to keep their fighter healthy and not get him not get him hurt. So they were thinking, if this is going to be going on for 12 rounds, we're going to pull this guy out of the fight. So this is what we heard. But 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round, obviously, they realized that wasn't going to be necessary. And he just started doing what they call the hometown hustle and just kept throwing punches and stayed on me. And let the punches go. He knew it wasn't nothing coming back, and boom, we lose the decision. But anytime the lesson I learned in this fight is you never take anything for granted. If you can't get to where you need to go, if you can't get the perfect quote unquote situation, you got to make do for what you have. If you're at home and you can't get your flight to your camp and you only got 6 weeks to train, you better spend however long you're going to be home properly preparing. I mean, you got to call some of your closest sparring partner buddies or whatever, get them in camp with guys that you know ain't going to scam. They're going to really work. They're going to make you work, prepare you no matter who you're fighting. Even if you're fighting a southpaw, get the best guys you can get in, even if they're not a southpaw. Because you need to train. You need to properly be prepared. That's what you're doing. That's what you're here for. That's what you're there for. You know what I'm saying? You go into the camp for those 8 weeks to train properly, to get ready, to do what is necessary to win the fight. You know, they say train hard, fight easy. Well, in this situation, we tried to train hard. We didn't have enough time. So what happened? The fight was hard. The fight was harder than it needed to be. You know what I mean? I had what it took to win that fight hands down easily. But because I wasn't prepared like I needed to be, and that's not been my MO my entire career. It may have looked like I wasn't in shape in a lot of these fights, but I had always been in the best shape possible, with the exception of this one fight. You can look at all the rest of the fights I've had in my entire career, and this one fight is the one fight that I wasn't where I needed to be. And it probably would have turned everything on its head in my career. Maybe I would have won a couple of titles. Who knows? Maybe I would have beat Vladimir at that point. I doubt it, because I don't think I had the proper situation in the corner to have the information and what was necessary to beat him. But hey, you never know.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you a couple of questions, Eddie. Obviously, the preparation side you mentioned wasn't ideal. You were in the ring about 11 weeks earlier, fighting Calvin Brock, and that was pushed back, of course. It should have been earlier. And that, obviously that wasn't to do with Povetkin's team. They didn't want to postpone it any further. It's an unfortunate situation. But what was your... I want to ask a couple of questions here. I'll start with this one. So you mentioned that you felt you probably nicked the first 5 rounds of the 6 at the midway point.
Well, maybe he won maybe the first round, maybe because it was close, because I landed a huge right hand, which was the first one. I landed in that round, and the round was kind of going back and forth a little bit up to that point. And I felt like I could have won that round, but they probably gave it to him, which they gave him almost every other round. But yeah, definitely 5 out of the 6. Definitely 5 out of the 6 was mine, in my humble opinion.
So, what is your final scorecard in your humble opinion?
If he gets one of those first 6 rounds, the scorecard is 115, 113 him.
Okay,
that's what his, and this is exact. I'm telling you straight up, his newspaper, and this is the thing that happens sometimes when you lose. I mean, you start trying to look for like a silver lining. You want to see that, something good came of this. Like maybe somebody saw something, even though it's a loss, maybe it's a good loss, even though I don't feel like it was any loss to me. And in this situation, when you got to be a undefeated guy, no losses are good. But his newspaper, the newspaper there, the people that were supposed to be supporting him, which, they do, but they said they were disappointed in Povetkin's performance. Not so much disappointed in performance. It was more that they weren't so disappointed in him as that they were impressed by what I was able to do to him. And in a sense, like you're supposed to be this God over here. You know what I mean? You Olympic champion. You done this. You've been, you basically won every fight in your amateur career. You come into the pros. You beat Chris Bird. You do all of these great things, and you let this 25-year-old, because I was 25 at the time, you let this 25-year-old kid come in here and school you. And it wasn't necessarily those were the exact words, but to that effect, that's what it sounded like. They let this kid come in here and outclass you. This is what was said in their paper. So it was kind of like, damn, it makes me feel bad for him, and he won. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it was like, opportunities like that don't come every day. You know what I'm saying? So it's great that we, that people thought of me like that. That damn, you're a really good fighter, but this is what happens. Even Max Kellerman comes into the dressing room after the fight, man. It was like, man, I told you, man. Drop down to that cruiser. You go down to cruiser, you're dominating these fights. There's nobody down there. I'm telling you, you go to cruiser, you'd be world champion right now. And he was saying, I mean, you could say, a lot of people would say, oh, he was only 227. He said, but look at your size, look at your weight. You're not even supposed to be as big as you are right now. You drop down to cruiserweight, you're dominating everybody. I'm sitting there thinking in my head, like I've been trying to tell these guys that for my whole career since I've been up there talking to them about it, and they never wanted to hear it. None of my team wanted to hear the fact that I need to drop the cruiserweight, win a title there, or try to win a title there, then move up to heavyweight later. They didn't want to hear it. All they wanted was that heavyweight. They really wanted that heavyweight money. That's what they were thinking about. And don't get me, we were almost there to that point, but got a little setback.
And obviously after this, Povetkin, a couple years later, whenever it was, a few years later, he would end up popping for Peds. Back then,
yeah.
Do you feel like he was on the juice, Eddie?
To be honest with you, if he was on something, it wasn't for his, obviously for aesthetics. It didn't look like it was, like he was on something at the time I fought.
Yeah.
But they got these different ones. These ones that are, for conditioning, like, your lung capacity is increased, your ability to throw punches or whatever for a longer period is enhanced. That could have been something, but I saw him in the ring and he fought somebody and knocked him out. And I looked at his body and I was like,
I know who you're talking about. You're talking about when he knocked out, Cuban.
Oh, wait. Yeah, yes. Mike Perez.
There you go.
Mike Perez. He knocked out Mike Perez. He destroyed him. And it's like, I looked at him, I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely on the juice right now. He's on that juice. He's on that real juice because his body was not like that. Look at his fight with me. Now, I'm not saying that he wasn't on something with me. Maybe he had just started or maybe not. Maybe he wasn't at all. But look at his fight with me. Look at his fight with Mike Perez. Look at his body.
Yeah.
He always had that little bit of extra around his waist. He wasn't straight flat stomach, big shoulders and chest. Never. Not until he started taking that shit. Then when he getting that, then what happened? Boom, he gets popped for PEDs. I told you, man. Listen, man. I fought guys. And I don't want to name names, but I fought guys that had six packs on their stomach, on their big belly. If you got a six pack on top of a big stomach, what does that mean? That means you putting some extra stuff into your body. That's what it means. And I've seen it. I ain't gonna say no names because I ain't trying to put nobody out there, But the reality of it is, I've fought maybe I don't know how many guys that I probably fought and they probably was taking stuff. You know what I mean? I don't want to say I guarantee. I know I can guarantee you at least, especially in the elite level, I done fought many guys who took it. Shit. In fact, most of the guys I fought probably took it. And so not only,
No, I just want to ask you this as well, Eddie. I just want to jump in there and say, obviously, we're coming to the end here. We've discussed Povetkin. Povetkin, even in this day and age, in 2020, is still one of the true elite fighters in the heavyweight division. In the heavyweight division, we saw him last time out, a controversial draw against Michael Hunter. Many felt Hunter deserved to get his arm raised. He takes on Dillian Whyte in just a couple weeks from now, something like that. How did you see that fight unfolding there?
With Dillian Whyte?
Yes, sir.
I like Dillian. I mean, I like him as a person as well. He's a real cool guy. I met him in camp with Tyson when we first met. But my thing always was with Dillian. I liked him bend his knees a little more because he has athleticism. He's strong. Got a big punch. He got a pretty good punch. He's a powerful guy. You know what I mean? He's sort of tall. He's about similar in height to Povetkin, maybe a little taller. And he has developed boxing ability, like really, really developed, and he's getting better.
Hang on a minute.
So I mean, he
isn't Povetkin's about 6'1"?
No, he was supposed. Well, they said he was 6'3" when I fought him, but he's about 6'2", maybe, and some change. Yeah. Probably not quite 6'3".
I think off the top of my head, Dillian 6'4". I think
they said either 6'3" or 6'4". Dillian is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so he got he's got a little length on him. Obviously, it's just I don't like how tall he stands. He stands a little bit too tall, too long. And if you look at some of the fights that he fought guys in, he get caught a little late in fights, like with the fight with I want to say he's the Colombian guy. What's his name? God dang, they was even trying to schedule up Oscar Rivas. He got caught messing around, but he's up in the air. You know what I mean? Even with Anthony Joshua, up in the air a lot, knees locked out, trying to look. Anthony Joshua was 6'6". Let him be 6'6". You know what I mean? You bend your knees, and he landed some good shots. He actually buzzed Anthony Joshua in that fight. If he could have just been a little more sturdy on his legs, not been so high and so giddy on his feet, he could have won that. He would have had a better shot. He would have had a better shot. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at him in a lot of these fights, even with Chisora and things like that, and these guys are just lower than him. Now, of course, if you're taller, you're taller. That's just the way it is. But you still can be look at Vladimir. A lot of people don't know this about Vladimir. Vladimir bends. You know what I mean? He gets into a nice bent position. He's not standing knees locked straight up in the air with his head up in the air. even though his head is kind of high, but that's just his height. But he's using that extended arm, knees bent, and he's moving using decent footwork. That would be my only gripe with Dillian. If he's going to fight Povetkin and he's going to win, I mean, he's younger, he's fresher. He should be able to go out and win this fight. He has enough punch of power and boxing ability to do it. But if he goes out here, head up in the air, going straight back, he'll get caught. He can get caught with something. And if Povetkin is on his game and ain't getting old overnight, there's a good chance that, he can maybe catch you. Or not even just catch you. Maybe he can outwork you because he has that ability to do that. So you got to make sure that you're at your best and doing everything possible to leaving no stones unturned to make sure that you get this fight, you get this win under your belt because you need it. This is a huge opportunity for him.
So who you got winning it?
I'm gonna take Dillian. I think Povetkin at this point, man, he's class, and maybe in his prime, he wins, against Dillian. But at this stage in his career, I can't go against Dillian in this fight. I'm just bend his fucking knees a little bit and box at range and not allow this guy to outwork you, catch you with something stupid. You should be good. You know what I mean? Just win the fight. Win the fight. If you're not gonna look good, that's okay. Fine. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Win the fight. Look good. Next fight. You know what I mean? Just win. That's the idea.
Points?
Yeah, I say points.
Yeah.
Definitely say points.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you there. But that brings this edition of the Eddie Chambers Lockdown Knockdown to a close. We've, like I say, tried to do this as often as possible. It's been very different, because it seems like a long time ago now where we do the review part, then bring in one guest, then do the preview part, then bring in the second guest with the news in the middle. During this whole thing, this I believe is the 18th podcast in a row where we've had a different world champion on. 18 different world champions in 18 weeks, and we've only had one interview per show, and of course as much as possible we've had Eddie on speaking about these in-depth moments of his career, and we're going to try to do this hopefully every week now to get through it, because the big fights are coming back slowly but surely in the boxing world in 2020. But thanks once again, Eddie, going into detail about such a big fight there, all the ins and outs that people don't know, and it's something new to listen to. There's a lot of my competitor podcasts out there, and I know for a fact they're not supplying a segment on their show that's as good or as interesting as yours.
No doubt, man. I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to do it. This is an opportunity to put my story on Front Street so people can really see. I mean, if they're interested, obviously, and see in general, with boxing, because boxing is a really, really crazy sport. There's a lot of dirt, but there's a lot of good that's in the sport too. So, maybe through my story, they can kind of get an extra, a more in-depth glimpse of what it's like in the career and the mind of a fighter.
Absolutely, well said. Well, that brings all the talking to a close. The final thing to do now is to welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast, the two-time WBC Super-Middleweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. David Benavidez. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning and two-time WBC Super-Middleweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. David Benavidez. David, welcome back on the show, my friend.
How you doing, brother? Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, David. So we last spoke back in August of last year, so it's been a while. In that time, of course, you've only had the one fight, which was that win over Anthony Dirrell. You become the first man to stop him. The Dirrell brothers as a whole, sometimes they're targeted by boxing critics for having no heart, but Anthony showed a lot of heart that night back in September. Just give me a couple words on that win there, obviously being your most recent win.
It was a great win, you know what I mean? I feel like I did something that nobody else has done, especially with the fighter that's fought, a lot of great fighters. He's fought Badu, Jack, he's fought a lot of great fighters, so for me to be able to stop him, it was a big accomplishment, in my career, and not only that, stopping him and winning a world title and doing so, So it was a great victory for me, and I feel, I feel amazing. I'm just ready to get to the next one.
And tell me, David, what has lockdown life been like for you? What has kept you busy during this tough time for everyone?
Honestly, everything has, kind of been, regular to me. Everything's kind of really been the same. The only thing that's been taken out of my life, has been just, eating at restaurants and, me going to the movies on the weekends. But, other than that, everything, really kind of stayed the same. Me going to the gym. Well, my dad has his gym too, my gym, our gym. So, we kind of have our little private sessions here, going to run in the morning and then starting the day over the next day, So nothing has really changed, but we still got this work in, kept training and preparing for the next fight.
And talking of your next fight, it's been penciled in for August 15th against Roamer Alexis Angulo. Do you know much about your opponent here, David?
Yeah, I've been watching him a little bit. I feel like, he's a little bit people that have fought him have underestimated him because there hasn't really been too much film on him. He's fought, he's had some good fights. Obviously, he has punching power. He had a good fight with Gilberto Ramirez, and then he had a great win with Anthony Sims Jr. But I feel like, I'm not overlooking this guy at all, and I know exactly what he brings to the table. He's a strong guy, and he's really crafty too. So I know exactly what I'm walking into with this guy, so I have to be very careful. I have to be, not to give him the respect he deserves, but I feel like it's going to be an amazing fight. It's going to be a great fight. He's looking to beat me. I'm looking to defend my title, and at the end of the day, what that's going to result in is a great fight for the fans.
And I can't wait for it. Eddie Hearn has obviously made his return to boxing, promoting on the weekend just gone, and of course he's trying to bring back the best schedule in boxing. But when PBC announced their upcoming schedule, he tried to basically downplay the fights, and he actually tried to act like Benavidez versus Angulo's a terrible fight, which is ironic because Angulo, as you said, just beat Eddie Hearn's prospect Anthony Sims Jr. and took his O. But yeah, that's another story, I suppose. Let's keep it positive. Angulo can punch, obviously, you mentioned he's got some good wins, but that standout fight obviously was his loss to Gilberto Ramirez on points. I know the way you are. I know what kind of fighter you are. You'll be hoping to make a statement and probably get a stoppage in this fight. Am I right in saying that, David?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking to do. It's kind of always my game plan. I don't rush the knockouts, so I don't try to rush the stoppages. I just try to do everything correct, and that comes on its own. I feel like I'm the young champion in the game, 23 years old. So I kind of want to show these, all these other old dogs, that I'm here and I'm here to stay, and I'm going to get them out of there one way or another.
And also, please help me understand the mandatory situation. Am I right in saying you've been ordered to defend the title against Avni Yildirim, but that situation seems quite confusing. Obviously, I think you've been allowed a voluntary here. What is actually happening?
What actually happened with that is that I was supposed to fight Yildirim in April, before everything got locked down. But he had got injured or something happened, and Roamer Angulo stepped up to the plate, so the contract was already signed, you know what I mean? Before my fight got canceled in April, I was supposed to make a defense in Phoenix, Arizona. The dude was already hurt or whatever would happen, whatever his situation was. So, the contract was already signed with this guy, So, I feel like I have to fulfill the contract, and I have to go about the contract and give this guy the opportunity because the other guy was hurt, anyway. So that's kind of the situation going on that. The contract was already signed, everything was ready to go, but the only thing that stopped it was, the shutting down because of the COVID. You know what I mean? So I feel like, we're gonna get this fight with this guy. He's probably, I think, in my opinion, he's tougher than Yildirim. He has more tricks than Yildirim. And then, go in there and defend my title and then get the fight in with Yildirim.
And being a WBC world champion, I want to get your take on, obviously, the WBC's idea to introduce this franchise champion thing. Are you for or against this?
I wouldn't really say I'm against it, but I don't really agree with it. I feel like in the WBC, the biggest stars get the franchise because there's only has been 2 franchise champions. Am I right?
I believe so. I think it's Lomachenko and Canelo.
So I don't really agree with it, especially because other people that they're barely just starting off or they're barely becoming champions. They don't have as big as a name as those two fighters, they've been there forever. The respects to them. But I feel like, if a fighter earns a WBC title, he should be respected and he should be, crowned as champion. I don't think another person should just come out of nowhere and just, skip the whole line basically and just win this, get a belt, but that's beyond me. I can't really control nothing that goes on in that situation. My job is just to, be the champion at 168, WBC, and then, just continue defending my title and winning fights.
And talking of being a champion at 168, last time we spoke, the super middleweight division was in the same position. All 4 champions are still undefeated. I'm guessing most Latinos would say you're the best. Most Brits would say Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith may be the best. A lot of Americans would say Caleb Plant's the best. Out of all those guys, you'd like to fight Plant the most, I believe, out of all those guys.
Yeah, the only reason I would like to fight Plant the most is because, there's a little bit of bad blood going on there. But, I feel like who I would benefit fighting the most would be Callum Smith. I feel like he has the Ring Magazine, the WBA, and the Diamond. So I feel like I would gain the most fighting Callum Smith. But, as of, just to get the fight out there, just because of dislike to one another is, to be Caleb Plant. But, all those fights are, amazing fights. I feel like, we have to get these fights going on soon, There can't be 4 undefeated champions at 168. We all have to face each other soon. I don't know how we will do it because, that it would be very unfortunate. We'd have to fight one another without a crowd, because I feel like these are great fights that, the spectators would want to see or fans would want to show up to. But if we're not able to, fight with the crowd, then there's nothing we could do. But I feel like by next year we should, I have to face one of those champions, I feel like I'm ready for it, and I feel like I could beat any of those fighters. So, I feel like I want to take the chance and I want to take the opportunity to get in the ring with either of them.
Yeah, I'd love to see those fights, and I believe you when you say you want them too. We're still unsure on, obviously, what Canelo's going to be doing, who he's going to be fighting in September, if it indeed goes ahead. Who do you feel should get that shot, in your opinion, David?
I feel like, just going back on Eddie Hearn, whatever he said, I feel like that's why he's a little more frustrated, because they've been talking about Canelo fighting for a while, and it's just amazing that they haven't found an opponent yet, there's a lot of great fighters right there for him to pick and choose from. So, I really don't know what's going on in that situation. I feel like he has to, if he's going to be at 168, he has to face, one of the champions at 68. I think Callum Smith, myself, Billy Joe Saunders. Those are all great fights. I don't know why there's a holdup. There's more than enough, opponents to pick from. So I don't know, one of the champions at 168, maybe somebody at 160 or another person at 175. There's a lot of good options from there. So, I really don't know what's a holdup. But, it's none of my business. I just really try to stay in my lane and, focus on what I got going on. And right now what I got going on is, Roamer Alexis on August 15, and I'm just looking forward to that.
Absolutely, and like I say, I hope you get through him, and then you'll be in this lane, and we'll be speaking about you and some of these bigger names. Just before we sign out, David, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners. Of course, we haven't spoke for a while. I'm not sure if you've done many UK interviews or anything like that. If you've got any message to your fans over here, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, all the people have been following me. I know I'm not that big of a household name in the UK, but all the people that do support me that I've met, throughout the years, they show me a lot of love. So, I'm very honored and humbled to have fans, from all the way over there, and especially since I'm from the U.S. So I can't wait to get a fight over there. Maybe hopefully we could get a fight with Callum Smith, and I would be more than willing to go to the UK and, give that fight, after all this COVID situation is done. So. Again, I want to thank everybody, and also thank you for taking this time out to give me this interview.
No, it's absolutely always my pleasure, David, speaking with you. Believe me, I want to thank you for your time. I want to wish you the absolute best of luck for August 15th. I'll be supporting from my couch, and of course, if we don't speak, in the couple weeks after the fight, I just want to say I hope everything goes well. Just for those that don't know, you've got a baby boy on the way. Have you got a name just yet, David, or not?
Yeah, his name is going to be Anthony Moises Benavidez. So I'm very excited for that too. You know, feel like I'm getting in another chapter in my life, so I'm very motivated as well. So, you know, thank you so much for that, what you just said.
God bless you, David. Speak soon, my friend.
Okay, have a nice day.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 251 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. The former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Eddie Chambers, has been with me for the duration of the show. A big thank you to him. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the two-time reigning WBC Super-Middleweight world champion, David Benavidez. The biggest thanks of all, though, of course, goes out to you, the listeners, for your continued support. One or two pieces of news have broken while we've been recording the show. On August 22nd at the Bubble in the MGM Grand, Top Rank are back promoting a show with an amazing headliner, actually, between former light heavyweight world champion Elida Alvarez and big punching Joe Smith Jr. Top Rank have also announced that they've signed the undefeated Nigerian heavyweight prospect Efe Ajagba, who has parted ways with former promotional stable PBC and Al Heyman, of course. But that's about everything from me. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe. Thank you for listening, and we shall see you all again next week.